let's finish working on our eye control. We have a few more tasks to do. One, we need to make sure that this control will actually control what it's supposed to, the eyes. We also want to make sure that we'll set up the feature to have it follow the head or follow the world. So that's going to be similar to what we did with the chest. So let's work on that. What we'll do is first go ahead and discuss something about the eye. If you notice, we have this placement texture here, this 3D texture placement, and this is for the specular of the eye. Now, there is another section of this eye that I have hidden, so let's go ahead and bring that back. With it selected, we will go to our outliner. We can hit up arrow to get to the group of this eye and frame it. Now that it's framed, we can see where our eyes are at. So here's our right eye, right underneath is the left. So once there, we want to open that up, go to the part of the eye that's hidden, select that and turn it on. Okay, so what this is going to allow us to do is have our specular 3D map basically influence the eye as it needs to. And I do want to mention about this specular, we're not going to want it to follow along with the eye because it is specular. The lights, with our eyes, lights do not move around when our eyes move. The lights stay in the same spot. So that's what the specular is for, to give the appearance of light hitting it. So we're going to want this just to be controlled by our scale. So it'll scale with the rig. So notice it's right underneath our view transforms. Okay, again, just that group to keep everything organized under to transform and view transforms, so we can see where it's at. Okay, so now that that has been discussed, we did need to bring this back, so this will move along with the eye. We do need that moving along. So once we've brought that out of hiding, we'll go ahead and close that group, go to the next one, and unhide the next layer, this time for the left eye, and then we can go ahead and close that out. Okay, so now that we have both eyes prepared for rigging up, let's go ahead and set up their connection. So that's going to be by just an aim constraint. Aim constraint works best for this. And what we can also do is go to shading and turn on wireframe on shaded. I like to do that so when we set up the aim constraint, we can see that nothing is shifted, everything's working properly. So for the constraint, remember we select the driver first, starting with this right one. With the driver selected, we select the driven. That's going to be our eye group. So go ahead and select that. We do want to make sure that with the group that it is centered where it needs to be with the eye, so the eye will move correctly. Its axis will be correct. And the group is already centered, so that's fine. But you want to check, go ahead and double check your eyes. But once we have selected the eye control and the eye group, we can now go up to constrain, check out the aim constraint options, and it should have maintain offset checked on. By default, it is not checked on, so we want to make sure that it is. Everything else is fine. We just hit add. Notice there's no shifting in the eye. When we select our eye control, notice it's moving just as we need it to. All right, great. So with that now done, we can set up the left. With that selected, we'll control click our eye group. In our outliner, go to constraint and do another aim constraint. Move it around. Excellent. The eyes are moving wonderful. So now we can go to our eyes group, and if we wanted to, move both eyes as needed. Great, so with this now set up, what I like to do from here is go ahead and select both eyes and get rid of everything excluding the translates for the individual eye controls, that is. So we'll hide those since we'll just need to move these around wherever we like. And if you wanted to, you could even go a step further, and since we won't really need to translate in the Z with the eyes, we can go ahead and select both eye controls and even get rid of the Z if we like to. Okay, so we could just move these around. Great, it'll still function the way we'd like it to. Okay, so with the eyes now set up, we've got our attributes cleaned up for us. So what's our next step? Well, we want to make sure that it's not only going to follow with the head and with the world, but also scale correctly with the rest of our rig. So we can set up that very easily by, let's go ahead and close out this section here, but that's going to be very easily set up by just taking our eyes control and putting it under our control object. So with it selected, we'll control click our control objects and hit P. Now it's where it needs to be. And we can set up our group. So with the eye selected, we'll go ahead and group that. call the group grp underscore cc underscore eyes 01. Hit enter. Okay, we don't necessarily need to move the pivot. You can if you like, but we don't need to. So now we need to set up our constraints. That's going to be with our head control. That's also going to be with our world. So we'll control click the world within our outliner, get that selected, and followed by the group of our eyes. So we need to find that, and it should be right here at the bottom. So we'll control click the eyes group and do parent constraints. So we'll just go to constrain parent. So now that's connected. From here we go to our eyes and we add an attribute. Let's go ahead and go to add attribute, and we'll call the attribute again driver for the category name, display label, hit add. And then as far as the label of the attribute, we'll again call that follow. Go to enum, switch green to follow the head, so we can call that head. And then for blue, we'll call that world. Great. So now that this has been done, we'll hit OK and do our connections. So with our eye control selected, we'll go to our set driven key, load that up as the driver, select follow. Now we want to get to our group so we can get to the parent constraint. So let's do that. We'll select the parent constraint, load that up as the driven, select both head and world. Just zero out the world since we have our head selected first for our category or for our attribute, and we'll hit key selected just like what we've done before. Switch the head to world. Go ahead and switch these numbers around, so no more weight on the head but weight on the world. Hit key and test it out. So right now it's set to world. You select the head, move it around, the eyes will follow just as we need them to. And even if we go to our upper body there, move that around, the eyes will stay where it needs to. But let's say if we wanted the head to instead follow the eyes to follow the head. Now if we select it, move it around, it's going to move. So this can be what I'd use this for. If you wanted an idea, what I'd like to use this for is, let's say when you're doing your initial animation, you don't want the eyes to stay in the same spot while the body's moving around. It may make the eyes look weird when you are animating. So if you just want to do a quick connect with the eyes while you're doing your rough test with the rest of the body, you can go ahead and use that switch. But again, you'd probably prefer using world so that the eyes will function the way they need to. Alright, so that's the setup of the eyes. And I do want to also mention, when you get to working on blend shapes, what would be cool is to add a few shapes that are driven by the movement of the eye control, so that as you move them around, you get some natural performance out of the eyes. So as they move up, you might want the lids to move up slightly as well. Just really study people's eyes, how they move, to get the idea as to how that should be set up. But again, that's really easy to do, and I know you can do that, especially from what we've already done so far. So, and again, we do have a kit that goes over how to do blend shapes. So if you need any help with that, do recommend checking that out. But that is, again, the setup of the eyes. Okay, and we can double check our character node, make sure everything's where it needs to be by collapsing it and making sure that nothing is out of place, and also going to our scale, making sure that that will move along right too. Alright, excellent. Well, again, that finishes off our setup of the eyes, and in the next lesson we'll work on the hat.